Music in the Night, Chapter 2. I feel at this time there are a few things you should know about Chester. He's not your ordinary cat, but then I'm not your ordinary dog. Since an ordinary dog wouldn't be writing this book, would he? Chester came into the house several years ago as a birthday gift for Mr. Monroe, along with 2 volumes of G.K. Chesterton, hence the name Chester, the first edition of Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. As a result of the introduction to literature, and given the fact that Mr. Monroe is an English professor, Chester developed a taste for reading early in life. I, on the other hand, have developed a taste for books. I found Jonathan Livingston Seagull particularly delicious. From Chester's kittenhood on, Mr. Monroe has used him as a sounding board for all his student lectures. If Chester doesn't fall asleep when Mr. Monroe is talking, the lecture can be counted a success. Every night when the family is sleeping, Chester goes to the bookshelf, selects himself a midnight reading, and curls up on his favorite chair. He especially likes mystery stories and tales of horror and the supernatural. As a result, he's developed a very vivid imagination. I'm telling you this because I think it's important for you to know something of Chester's background before I relate to you the story of the events following the arrival of Bunicula into our home. Let me begin with that first night. It seems that after I went to sleep, Chester, still stewing over the lost milk, settled down with his latest book and attempted to ignore the rumbling in his stomach. The room was dark and quiet. This did not prevent him from reading, of course. Since cats can see in the dark, a shaft of moonlight fell across the rabbit's cage and spilled onto the floor below. The wind and the rain had stopped as Chester read Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. He became increasingly aware of the eerie stillness that had taken their place. As Chester tells it, he suddenly felt compelled to look at the rabbit. "I don't know what came over me," he said to me the next morning, but a chill ran down my spine. The little bunny had begun to move for the first time since he had put it in the cage. He lifted his tiny nose. Did I miss a page? No, I didn't. Sorry. I know. Look. It's always on the fly with us. "I don't know what came over me," he said the next morning, but a chill ran down my spine. The little bunny had begun to move for the first time since he'd been put in the cage. He lifted his tiny nose and inhaled deeply, as if gathering sustenance from the moonlight. He slickened his ears back close to his body, and for the first time, Chester said, I noticed the peculiar marking on his forehead. What had seemed an ordinary black spot between his ears took on a strange V-shape, which connected with the black patch that covered his back and each side of his neck. It looked as if he was wearing a coat, no more like a cape than a coat. Though the silence had drifted the strains of a remote exotic music. I could have sworn it was a gypsy violin, Chester told me. I thought perhaps a caravan was passing by, so I ran to the window. We're going to pause.